And now, from deep in the heart of Texas, LifeTalk. Here's your host, Mark Crutcher.
Hello and welcome to LifeTalk for May 2011. I'm Mark Crutcher, and skulking in the shadows are Cherie Johnson, Troy Newman, and Johnny Hunter. As always, Father Frank and Janet Morano will be joining us later, but right now, it's time for Alan Ackles with this month's LifeTalk News. Alan?
All right, thank you, Mark. The trend of abortion clinic closings continued this month in at least 3 locations. In Lynn, Massachusetts, Atlantic Care OBGYN has shut down, according to information given to LifeTalk News by an employee of the facility. This clinic was operated by abortionist Elaine Campbell. In 2001, Campbell was sued by the family of one of his customers after she was left with permanent brain damage following an abortion he performed on her. Meanwhile, the clinic of Nevada abortionist Frank Silver has been closed after he was evicted from the building. LifeTalk News confirmed the closing, but was told by one of the facility staff that Silver continues to do abortions at another location. Local pro-lifers say they will continue to protest that clinic until it closes as well. And in Delaware, clinics in Dover and Wilmington, operated by Atlantic Women's Medical Services, have closed. Owner Pansy Myrie was facing censure from the state's medical board for falsely presenting herself as a licensed doctor. After being caught and given a cease and desist order by the state, Myrie agreed to close the facilities and is now trying to sell them. One of the abortionists working for the chain was Kermit Gosnell, who is charged with 8 counts of murder in Pennsylvania. Both facilities were members of the National Abortion Federation. Well, pro-choice violence was also evident again last month while more than 400 people gathered in downtown Chicago to honor longtime pro-life leader Joe Scheidler. Members of the local pro-choice community were outside slashing the tires of cars with pro-life bumper stickers. Then in California, police were called to a San Diego abortion clinic after a pro-choice man pulled a semi-automatic pistol on a pro-life sidewalk counselor and said he would shoot her if she came close to his car. He then drove away, but not before witnesses wrote down his license plate number and called authorities. San Diego Police Department spokesperson Lieutenant Andrew Brown told LifeTalk News that they know who the suspect is but have not yet been able to locate him. She assured us that her department will continue to pursue the case. In Florida, a memorial to the unborn victims of abortion has been vandalized on 3 separate occasions. Over 4,000 crosses symbolizing the number of daily abortions in the U.S. had been erected by the St. Augustine Mission of Nombre de Dios, and the attacks against the display grew more bizarre with each incident. First, vandals stole one sign and put a hole in another sign near the memorial. On the second incident, they pulled over 400 of the crosses out of the ground and turned them upside down. And on a third occasion, the crosses were decorated with children's stickers and carved with random phrases, covered with Mary Kay products, and surrounded with CDs, hair dryers, and children's toys. Police have beefed up patrols around the display and are still investigating the incident. A Catholic college in Vermont has refused to give credits to students interning at the nation's largest abortion provider. According to the Catholic pro-life watchdog group, the Cardinal Newman Society, St. Michael's College denied a student credit for interning at Planned Parenthood because, according to Dean Jeffrey Trumbauer, approving of this internship would signal that the school approved of the practices of Planned Parenthood. Meanwhile, the Cardinal Newman Society is joining with Students for Life and 16 additional pro-life leaders in calling for a Jesuit university in Washington state to sever its ties to Planned Parenthood. According to Seattle University's website, the school refers students to Planned Parenthood, promotes internships within the organization, hires past abortion clinic employees, and honors students who have worked for the abortion chain. Well, a Minnesota public high school has denied a pro-life club official status, claiming that the club does not represent the whole student body. Attorneys with the Alliance Defense Fund have filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the St. Michael Albertville Pro-Life Student Group. The suit, filed with the United States District Court of Minnesota, states that the school cannot deny pro-lifers equal access while granting official recognition of the Environmental Club, the Diversity Book Club, and others. In a related story, a pro-life student group in New York, we'll go back to the beginning of that segment there, Renee.
Was that the right spot?
Yeah, scroll on down.
Yeah, keep on going.
Go down to the next story. He's going to pick it up at the beginning of this.
There you go.
Right there.
There you go. Okay, here we go. Still rolling?
Yes.
The Environmental Club, the Diversity Book Club, and others. In a related story, a pro-life student group in New York has succeeded in getting their club recognized by school officials. The University of Buffalo Students for Life had applied for recognition from the Student Association in May of 2010, but it was not granted. Then the Alliance Defense Fund sent a letter asking the Student Association to either recognize the group or provide an official reason why their request was being withheld. On the day that the Student Association received the letter, it granted recognition. The national president of Students for Life, Kristen Hawkins, says that this strategy of delaying pro-life student applications is being used nationwide. Well, disorderly conduct charges have been dropped against a Wisconsin pro-life man after witnesses failed to show up for trial. James Marco, a sidewalk counselor at the affiliated Women's Death Camp, was charged when 2 abortion clinic escorts claimed that he struck one of them and that he was obstructing access to the clinic. Marco was represented by the Thomas More Society, whose president, Tom Brecka, said that not only was Marco falsely accused, but the witness gave police a fictitious name, and the court's subpoena was issued to his alias rather than the real person. And finally, the City Council in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has been ordered to pay pro-lifer Keith Tucci $10,000 for violation of his constitutional rights. The former leader of Operation Rescue claimed that a city police officer wrongly cited him for defiant trespassing near a Planned Parenthood clinic simply because he was a known activist. In the lawsuit, Tucci successfully argued that on that day the citation was issued, he merely walked past the facility but was not protesting nor carrying a sign. The citation was later dismissed by a district judge. I'm Alan Ackles for LifeTalk News. You can get daily news updates by logging on to ProLifeAmerica.com. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, we got a lot of things to talk about today, as we always do. First off, though, we have to issue, or I have to issue, I guess, an apology to a young lady named Stephanie Gray. We reported last month about a debate that she was in with this, it turned out to be another, the pro-abort, and we made the statement that Stephanie Gray said that she didn't believe that a baby is a person until 18 months after its birth. In reality, it was her opponent that made that statement. She is very pro-life and would have never made this statement. She didn't call us, but I do want to thank the people that did let us know about it. John Weingarten and from Spokane, Washington, Collins said he knows this lady and she would have never said anything like that. So I want to issue a correction and an apology to this woman. The last thing I'd ever want to accuse some pro-lifer of being is a pro-abort. So
what's about the worst thing you can accuse somebody of being?
It's a baby killer. So again.
That's a relief that she didn't really say that.
Stephanie, we are sorry. We won't let that happen again. If you're in Texas sometime, come by and see us. We'll apologize in person. Few things we got to talk about here. First thing, you know, we often, one of the things we often discuss around here is the difference in the approach of police departments to pro-abortion violence as opposed to the way they deal with pro-choice violence, which is much more common. In Kalispell, Montana, they had a situation where a group of people were participating in the 40 Days for Life public sidewalk, just walking back and forth.
Is this where they threw a Molotov cocktail at them?
Yeah, some pro-aborts came by and threw a Molotov cocktail at an elderly woman, as I understand it, who was standing there. And the police are kind of just blowing off, and one of the cops even said, if you guys are going to be out here doing this on the sidewalk, you kind of have to expect this sort of thing. Nice, huh? It's unbelievable.
You know, I was in Colorado Springs one time and we're standing on the highway, and these cars are whizzing by at 55, 65 miles an hour, and I got hit in the chest with a Whopper, a quarter pounder. It had one bite taken out of it. It hit me in the chest at 60 miles an hour, and it just about knocked me over. And the police said, "What do you expect?"
Right. Well, that's what they basically said here.
What do you expect?
If you're when you're in a public sidewalk exercising your First Amendment rights, you got to expect that people are going to throw Molotov cocktails at you.
And I have a pro-life friend that wants to volunteer to CPC, but she was horrified that might be connected with pro-life violence, and that's I guess the strength of the news media that portrays it that way.
That's right. And I was going to say that is so un-American, though. The whole idea about America, you have equal protection under the law.
Good.
You know, that's the whole idea behind America.
You're a pro-life Christian.
Yeah, but pro-lifers do not see that equal protection, and that can be risky. It's very un-American, unattractive, and it's definitely ungodly.
You know, before you get to the next one, Mark, along the same line, Senator Lautenberg of New Jersey said that Americans who are pro-life do not deserve the freedoms in the Constitution. This is a U.S. senator, put his hand on his Bible, put his other hand in the air and said that he would swear to uphold the Constitution for everybody except for those that are pro-life.
He later apologized for that because it
called
blew
on
up
the
in
carpet.
his face. But the fact is, that was his initial thoughts.
And that's 51% of the American people. Remember, that sentiment only represents about 38% of the Americans. 51% of Americans are pro-life.
And he's saying they don't deserve
the Constitution, the freedoms in the Constitution.
The hypocrisy.
That's radical. That's the definition of radical.
What state did you say?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
He's a U.S. senator.
Yeah. The hypocrisy of these people is unbelievable. And another one, another example of their hypocrisy here, the World Health Organization now is World Health Organization. WHO through the United Nations is saying that we should now start allowing non-physicians to do abortions. And that the reason for this is because they can't.
They say the reason is.
Well, yeah. Well, they're admitting that the reason is that they can't get enough doctors.
They're admitting.
Oh, yeah. And for example, just recently in Spain, the number of doctors in Spain who say they will not do an abortion has, just in recent months, gone up from 58.7% to over 70%.
Wow.
And we're seeing the same thing here.
Sure.
And so now they're saying, oh, we need to let non-physicians do abortions. And in reality, this is something that I've talked about in some speeches that I've given on this subject. What's killing the abortion industry here is so ironic and so beautiful. It's choice.
Yeah.
It's medical professionals choosing not to do abortions. Mm-hmm. And the hypocrisy, though, is that these people have always argued, and I know every one of us has been in arguments with these people where they said abortion has to be legal so it can be done by licensed medical professionals in clean settings and so forth. Right. Now, all of a sudden, because they can't get any of those kind of people to do it, they only get the washouts and the losers and the moral degenerates of medicine to do it. Now they're saying, oh, let's let nurse practitioners and,
Just keep lowering the standard, lowering the standard.
Right, right.
And this is so understandable because when you really meet doctors, whenever you've been in the hospital for a while, you find out the doctors and nurses, they really value life. Everything they do, they're trying to save a person. Everything they're doing, they're trying to make it better. And a person that enters the medical profession, they're doing it because they want to heal people and is so against whatever they believe in to kill. That is such good news, Mark. I tell you, it made my day today.
I remember one of the reasons that they wanted to legalize abortion was because of all the women that were dying from back alley abortions done by unlicensed, untrained personnel. And so what they're saying in reality is to go back to the, quote, back alley days.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Troy. When I wrote Line 5, we did some research and found actual quotes from pro-aborts back in the days prior to Roe and even up into the early days of Roe, admitting, and now the studies all show it, that the vast majority of illegal abortions were done by licensed physicians who were simply breaking the law. What we're headed toward now is a situation where they're saying non-physicians should be allowed to do it. We might have legal abortions being done by non-physicians compared to when abortions were illegal, they were done by physicians. Think about that.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, it is. But and for these same people then to say that we do this because we care about women, it is.
And we're the ones that are backwards.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
A couple of other things, and we got a big thing here to talk about. First off, I want to commend Hospital Resurrection Medical Center, which is associated with the Catholic Church in Chicago, is actually starting a program now where they will help women who've chosen to have second trimester abortions back out, if they decide they want to back out, have the laminaria removed, so that and this has been a scandal that the abortion industry has perpetrated for years. And they will tell these women, they'll go in for the laminaria insertions the day before, dilate the cervix, and then sometimes these women will go home and change their mind, they'll feel the baby kick or whatever, and they'll change their mind. They'll go back to the abortion clinic, and inevitably, and I've talked to hundreds of these women who have told me they've tried to do this, and the abortion clinic would tell them, no, you can't, because the laminaria kills the baby, or the baby's going to have birth defects. It has nothing to do with the baby. It has to do with the cervix only. And we have helped some women before get in touch with doctors that would remove the laminaria and everything be fine. Now this hospital has stepped forward and saying that they're going to start trying to help these women, and I think that's a fantastic thing that they're doing.
When you're trying to find a doctor to remove the laminaria, it's very hard. And sometimes, they make them sign waivers saying, I'm not responsible for anything that happens in the future because they don't want the liability. But I think that's what an excellent choice to really honor life.
They're just putting the word out that if this happens to you, you can come here and we'll take care of it.
We'll help you reverse it, reverse the procedure. And we used to have a doctor here in Dallas that we knew we could call and he would help. Unfortunately, he's died recently, or in the last few years. But, he routinely would remove the lamin area, and the baby be fine, the mother would be fine, you know.
Great is his reward in heaven.
Yep, and that's where he is right now. Speaking of, there was several stories this month that I call principled versus non-principled people. You remember one of the principled people we had on the show here not long ago, you remember Mr. Granning from down in Austin, the bus driver,
Right.
who refused to take the girl to Planned Parenthood, got fired, sued the city, wound up getting a settlement from them. We reported on it just last month.
Right.
Here's another example of someone doing the same thing. Is a man in Minnesota who was unemployed. He talked to his union every day trying to get a job, see if they got called or anything. He finally gets called, and he was offered a foreman's job on a construction site with a salary of $65,000 to $70,000 a year. The bad news was it was for a new Planned Parenthood, and this man turned it down. As bad as he needed the job, is unemployed, he turned his job down. This Tim Roach is his name, and his wife Nicole. He and his wife have a sign in one of their bathrooms that says, "Gratitude, always remember to count your blessings." And like I said, they've been out of work for, I think he said 11 months he'd been without a job. And trying to get work. And you know, work right now is not easy to get.
Right.
He'll get a much better job.
He'll get a much better job. He says, the first thing I wanted to do was to somehow justify taking this job. And he said, I told myself, it's just a clinic. And I said, no, it isn't. Through this whole process, our faith has deepened. This is what his wife said. We feel like it was a test of our faith, and we chose to stand behind our faith. Wow. That's what his wife said.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
For them.
See, people
Very
like that,
cool.
they put Judas to shame because they did not give out just for the funds.
right.
One of the biggest scandal when I was down in Virginia Beach, Lee Gorski, the lady that found out there was being a Planned Parenthood was being built, was worse when she found out who was building. This was contractors that was building that built a lot of the churches down in the Virginia Beach area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it's time that these pastors and churches start looking at these contractors. If a contractor build a place that kills, please don't let them build your worship center.
Don't even show up at our place. Don't even call. Don't even put in a bid because you're not going to get it.
Yep.
Somebody else that's showing some principle here, Catholic priest Reverend Samuel Aquila in Fargo, North Dakota, said this, quote, "One must honestly ask, how many times in years may a Catholic politician vote for the so-called right to abortion, murder, in the words of John Paul II, and still be able to receive Holy Communion?" It's a good question. You know, so he went on to say, the continual reception of the Holy Communion by those who so visibly contradict and promote a grave evil, even more than simply dissent, only creates grave scandal, undermines the teaching and governing authority of the Church, and can be interpreted by the faithful as indifference to the teachings of Christ and the Church.
Mm-hmm. And he's right about scandal, because anytime the Catholic Church is going ahead and giving these people communion, which Catholic faith now, if you're not a Catholic, they don't like to give it to you, period.
They won't give it to me or you.
Yeah,
And
period.
I totally
Period.
support their
and
position on that.
And for them to go ahead and give it to people that support an abortion is a scandal.
It is.
Because it makes them look like a bunch of hypocrites.
Right, it does.
And
Are the Catholics mad at this guy for
No, apparently
standing
not.
up?
No,
Oh, he's telling the truth.
no, he's telling the truth.
And of course, the one Protestant take, and I'm sure the Catholics have this as well, is this man eats and drinks damnation on his own head. That's what the Scriptures say. So someone who's in open rebellion to God and receives communion, they're actually damning themselves.
Yeah, but also what you're doing is involving the priest that's giving it to him, knowing the guy's like that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's
Well, 1 Corinthians 5, a little leaven leavens the whole lump, so the whole congregation.
It is a scandal for the church. That's a scandal.
You know, you think about how a minute ago this man who was needing a job so badly and was offered a foreman's job at this construction site and turned it down. Mm-hmm. Saying, you know, basically saying I couldn't give up my principles, basically. Martin Sheen claims to be so hardcore pro-life, and yet he's come out as a strong supporter of Barack Obama. And I hear this all the time from people who say, well, I can support, you know, these pro-abortion politicians still be pro-life. No, you can't.
Hello?
You
Donald
can't.
Trump supported Obama, and
Yeah.
now he's pro-life.
Oh, well, let's don't get into the Donald Trump thing.
Talk about hair deal.
Yeah,
it is.
How about
I wondered. I didn't know.
during all the hubbub over the taking funding away from Planned Parenthood. A bunch of preachers in Washington went together and called for the continued funding of Planned Parenthood. Quote, "I am a pro-life pastor, and I know that the concerns regarding Planned Parenthood are misguided. It is clearly understood that there is no federal funding for abortion. End of discussion." Reverend Derek Harkins, 19th Street Baptist Church in Washington, D.C.
Go visit him. I was in Washington, and me and Pastor Luke there, and Pastor Luke had put out this nice big banner, and we were Reverend Pat Mahoney, so you know it was up to something. Yeah. And it said, "Planned Parenthood killed more babies than the KKK," you know, and that just stirred up all kind of ruckus. But that's true. Why in the world is our government funding an agency that goes around killing babies? Right. This guy can try to deny it, pretend like he's a bit more pro-life than nothing. He can try that mess before me, you, and maybe Planned Parenthood. But when he stand before God, he ain't gonna be able to pull that argument off.
Well, this is the problem right here. This guy, Derek Harkins, pastor of the 19th Street Baptist Church in D.C., he is exemplary of the problem that this country has right now. Others, Bart Stupak, we all remember the so-called pro-life congressman who stabbed us in the back over the health care thing.
More importantly, stabbed the babies in the heart.
Yeah, that's right. He is now working for a lobbying company called Venerable in Washington, D.C. One of their clients is Planned Parenthood of Maryland.
He's still pro-life, huh?
No, he's still pro-life. Joe Manchin, who is often lauded as a person who is strongly pro-life, Democrat, right? Voted for the continued funding, as did Bob Casey, who is often held up as a guy who's pro-life Democrat, so we can write them off. Now, here's something that I think you'll really like, Troy. Douglas Kamick, we've talked about this sellout before, talks about how pro-life he is. He's a Catholic professor, law professor at Pepperdine. I didn't know, but he'd been given a job with the State Department by Obama. He has now resigned, or been thrown out actually, because he was accused of spending too much of his time while ambassador writing articles on the Catholic faith. And he was one of the people in charge of promoting Obama's interfaith initiative. Right.
He was one of the original sellouts.
And this is a good example of something I've heard you say about the fate of traitors is to be hated by both sides.
That's right.
And this
he was used by the Obama administration. The articles that he was writing were promoted. We heard him quoted on the evening news, ABC, MSNBC, even Fox News. He was a commentator all over the place promoting Obama's faith, his pro-lifeness.
Oh, yeah.
And along with Frankie Schaefer and others, he was really a propagandist. Right. Or what's the other term? A useful idiot.
Right, useful
being
idiot.
used by the Obama administration. But once he gets in the administration, they have no further use for him.
No more use for him, and they drop him in the grease.
A traitor is hated by both sides.
I think it's fantastic what happened here to this guy.